Greetings, everybody. Welcome to CS248 for the Summer 17 term here. We are section 960C, and we have a funny section like that because this is a stout online section of the course exclusively. This summer, we will be going through and learning how to do some web programming, and the programming is the more important part here. In this video, I'm going to get you oriented to the class, what the expectations and basic requirements are, show you some of the basic tools that are out there right now for you to go engage and start learning about what we're going to do this summer. After that, you will be free to go over and start into the course. It should all be available at this point. So, our main hub of communication will be the Learn at UW Stout system, where our course website is located. You should have already found that because that's where this video is. Pay close attention to the news section. I will try and use that as a regular form of communication. It's important that you're checking over into D2L every day so that you see any new news posts. I expect you'll be doing that anyways because this is a summer course and it moves pretty quickly. But make sure that you do. I might occasionally send out a direct email when there's something really important that I want to make sure that you find right away. But most of the time, communication will happen through the news section in the course website. There's a couple of things there already that you should take a look at. Right now I'm viewing this as a student, so I'll more or less be seeing exactly what you see when you come into the course website. The first thing that you'll want to stop off at is over in the content section. There's not much there initially, and that's kind of on purpose. You have to work through the material in this course in order. Most of it is set up to unlock only after you've completed the things that come before it. And right now, the only thing you'll really see is the table of contents and the general course info. Inside the general course info, there's several different things that you need to click through to make sure that you understand everything that needs to be done in the course. Now, in here, I've already been clicking through some of these things, so they're already checked off for me as done. All you have to do is click into it, and it checks you as having viewed it. Most of these for me, just because I've been making the class, are already done. However, there is one here that is not yet because I've recently updated this, and that's the course syllabus. Wherever you see this little gray dot, it means you haven't done it yet. Wherever you see the check mark, you're good. So make sure you go through all of this material. That is what will actually unlock Unit 1. This is also mentioned up in the general course info description. Everything that's in here is really important. The syllabus is, of course, important. We'll be going through that in a moment. I have a little calendar of the course outline. Just make sure you look at it. A little description of this special thing we're doing this year, the Flex Week. Make sure you read about that. And then some things that are just sort of common questions that people get asked. You can maybe think of this as the FAQ section. Things students have found useful in the past, things that I anticipate people will want to know. Make sure you read through all of this stuff. Some of it is really important, like proctor requirements for exams. You do have to find a proctor, but we keep it pretty easy. Also, just a summary of what you sort of do with each unit and module that we have created. And last, some tips that I really want to stress for you to succeed. The last thing that you have to do in this general course info is we're going to do some introductions. Make sure you go over to the discussion forums and post a little introduction of yourself. And I have instructions in here on the kinds of things I'd like you to post. This is mostly just to encourage you to use the discussion section so that I don't have to be answering all the questions. You can help answer each other's questions as well. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and go on into the syllabus. And as I come on into this here, you can go through and look at it all on here. The one key task, you need to view this topic. That's done now. You'll notice we go back to general course info. It's now checked off. You've got to do that for everything in here, including introducing yourself before section 1 will show up. So keep that in mind. Now I already have the syllabus loaded over here, so I'm going to look at it like that. Just to get you oriented to things, you've got all my basic contact info up at the top. And I am running online office hours, specific hours that I will be available to you to contact directly. These hours will be run, if you notice the little note here, using Skype for Business. So UW Stout has contracted with Microsoft to provide most of our services. That's who provides our email. And it gives us access to the full. We also use their online video conferencing tool Skype for Business. Being that you guys are Stout Online students, you might already know that. If you don't, make sure you go and seek out the instructions to install Skype for Business specifically, not just regular Skype, Skype for Business. You install that, and then you'll be able to log in with your UW Stout email and password. Once you're on there, you'll be able to find me through my email and my email. I am Barrier S. And it's going to fire up an email to me, of course. Barrier S at uwstout.edu. So you would look for me through that. My pledge is that I will be on there during these times. And I tried to move them through different times of days, expecting that you guys will be available at various times. So there's some morning hours, Mondays and Fridays, 9 to 11, I'll be on. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I do the afternoon, 1 to 3. And then I have one here where I'm going to be available in the evening from 7 to 9. Now, I'm not perfect. I might forget to log in. I might get busy, especially on that evening one, and not get in there quite on time. If you ever look for me and I'm not there, please shoot me an email. I will see that right away, and I will try and make sure that I can get online, or I'll send you a response back explaining what's going on. But I'm going to try my best to be available during these times right on Skype. We can just chat if you want. We can do audio chat. We can do video chat, whatever you're most comfortable with. My hope is that you won't look at this as just an online tutorial, something that you just go out and watch and finish on your own. I am here to help. That is what is unique about what we can provide at Stout here. So make sure that you take advantage of me. I want to answer your questions. I want to explain it in different ways and try and make sure that you get it. My goal is to make sure that you learn this material. And the best way to do that is to open communication. It's always harder when we don't meet in person. So please take advantage of this and make sure that you've at the very least got it installed and usable. Now, some other things that are important, there is a textbook that you'll need to make sure you can access. Let's see, where did my website go? I bet it's over here. There it is. It is an e-book. You've probably used those before. You get through it right up here through Red Shelf. That is the thing that will make you able to access it. I'll have an entirely different video that will sort of orient you to that and the basics of it. But just so you know, there will be a whole lot of required reading in that, especially at the beginning. As we get further and further on into more modern practices, the book will be less used, and we'll instead use resources such as tutorials out on the web and other places to get our information. So what are we going to be doing in this course? Well, we are going to be writing programs that run in a web browser, web programming. Consequently, you need to know how to program already. I'm not going to teach you that. Now, we're not expecting you to be pros. We're not expecting you to know any specific language, but I do expect that you've taken CS141 or CS144. 141 will have done JavaScript, which is good because we will be doing JavaScript in this class. If you've taken a really old version of it, it was taught in Visual Basic, which is just fine. You'll have learned the essential programming concepts. 144 will likely have been taught in either Java or C++, probably Java if you've been through there recently. So understanding the basic concepts of these languages is all we really need. I will expect that you know how to declare and assign to variables, that you know how to write a function and call it, and that you know the basic sort of flow control that happens with loops, if statements, and other just sort of basic programming concepts. We will very occasionally deal with objects, but not extensively, and we will also sometimes need to deal with some more advanced function passing and calling. But all of that I expect we'll need a little help with, no matter what your background is. By the end of this, my goal is to make sure that you know how to write programs in languages that run either in the web browser or on the server that's serving you the web pages by the end of all of this. Now, we'll take a little while to get there. We can't just dive right into that. Here's a little outline of what we're going to go through. The focus of this class is on writing programs for the web, not just creating web pages, but we do need to do a little bit of work that is oriented towards web pages first. So our first module will largely have to deal with that. We'll learn the basics of HTML5 and CSS, and then we'll look at some packages that help us largely to ignore the details of those, because that's not what this class is about. There are entire other classes that can really go deep into HTML and CSS, and I would encourage you, if you want to learn more about them, to seek out those courses. We do have to learn the basics though, so we will spend some time there. After that, we'll drive right into the programming portion. And honestly, we'll have seen some of the programming and examples up here as well, because we don't want to put that off. We're going to learn a lot about client-side scripting, meaning scripting or writing programs in the web browser. This will be done largely in JavaScript. We'll also learn about the jQuery library and something called AJAX, which is an acronym you might have heard before. The last section will be about server-side scripting, and usually the classic sort of tried and true way of doing that, which is through a language called PHP. We'll learn about accessing databases and writing queries for those databases in something called SQL. We will coordinate all of that with all the other technologies we've learned prior to that, including HTML and CSS, JavaScript. It all comes together in the end there. Now, the rest of this syllabus I leave up to you guys to read through. Make sure you do. This is a contract between you guys and me. This really sets the expectation for the course. Anytime you have a question about like logistics of the course or grading, it's probably here in the syllabus, and it's a good idea to look there first. If you've read through it in detail, you probably already know the answer. So make sure you do that. Look through everything. There will be 3 pre-graded components: quizzes, homework assignments, making up probably the bulk of the work in the class, and then unit exams. There's 3 units. There will be 3 unit exams. There will not be a comprehensive final. We won't have any sort of larger programming projects that we do in this class. It'll just be quizzes and homeworks for each module, and then a final exam for each unit. For the programming environment, we do most of it actually in a web browser. The web browser runs our code, and there isn't much else to it. However, we will use a special purpose text editor. We are going to use Atom in this course, which is a more modern text editor that can work in any programming language, including all the web ones that we're going to work with. We will not use Dreamweaver. Previous versions of this course have. There are other classes that you can take in this school that will use Dreamweaver. Dreamweaver's purpose is really not geared towards programming. It's geared towards visual design and layout. And so since it's a programming course, we're going to use Atom instead. So make certain that you work with that. Dreamweaver is essentially forbidden for this class because it makes some parts of the early course way too easy. I can recognize the style that it generates, so please be careful and not fall into the trap of trying to use that. Make sure you read through the details here of all the different assignments and how they're going to be laid out. This really hopefully spells out the class very clearly for you. Modules, homework, quizzes, Dropbox submissions, and exams. There's even some details about proctors in here that you'll want to read. Lastly here, there are some important dates down at the bottom. These are ones that you can just put right on your calendar and have ready to go. However, you'll also find on the course website that I have generated a calendar form of all of this. I often make this for myself, and I figured why not give it to you guys too. So we should be around here, the 12th being the first day of class, June 12th, though this is going live earlier than that. And you'll notice here, it's about 2 days for every module, and I don't count weekend days, so you'll see Friday and Monday here are the 2 days for module 1-3. And these all go through, get you through the basics. And the first one is probably the biggest one, because there's a lot of details in here. It has 5 modules, and then we'll have a unit exam as soon as we're done with those. The modules themselves will all release on the first day of the unit. You can work on them at your own pace, but they must be completed in order. As I pointed out before, later modules do not open up until you've completed the prior one. And right now, not even module 1.1 is available until you go through the general info. Finally, you can work them at your own pace. I do have these laid out here in 2-day intervals where you can expect it's due by the end of the day on the 13th here, then on the 15th, then on the 19th. However, I leave them open, and you are free to turn them in all the way until the end of the day at the last day of the unit when the exam happens. So if you need some flexibility, you can do that. If you want to work on them early, you can do that. They will all open up essentially when the class opens, and then you can complete them in however much time you wish. If one's taking a little bit longer, that's okay. Spend a little extra time, get it done, and then try and catch up in some of the later units. You can also catch up on the weekends if you find you need it. The only thing that's not flexible is the exam. It must happen within a particular 24-hour period, the first one being on June 26th. You have to get together with a proctor, and the proctor will be given a password. The exam will only be open and available through that password on that one day. So make sure that you time that appropriately and are available on these exam days. There's very little flexibility there. Once that finishes, at the midnight on the 26th, we will roll over and Unit 2 will start. Just like before, Unit 2 is available, all modules from the beginning. You can work ahead if you'd like. And work through them. The only thing that's not flexible is the exam, which is down here on July 17th. The last unit is probably going to feel a little bit compressed. I've often had where we let the material flow into the weekend if we have to. We can go all the way to the 30th if need be, but I do have it planned to end on July 28th when we will have our final Unit 3 exam. Be prepared for that last unit. It's a bit intense. We'll talk about that more when we get closer to it. For now, the other thing I want to talk about is right here in the middle of July. I have something planned in here that I'm calling vacation/flex week. The idea is I often get requests from students during the summer, can I have this particular week off? Can I work ahead? Can I catch up when I get back? I'm not going to have internet access, etc., etc. I want to make sure that we at least have some mechanism to deal with that, particularly because I'd like to do these things myself too. Given that you have decided to take a class for the summer, I don't want to disrupt your summer any more than I have to. This week right here I've designated as the Flex Week. It's July 10th through the 14th. During that time, I myself will be less available. I won't be holding office hours, and I will take longer to respond to emails. Consequently, nothing is officially due that week. You can take that time to work ahead or to get caught up if you are behind. I call it a flex week too because if you want to instead take the week before this off, which might be very possible since the July 4th holiday is happening during that week, you could do that instead, and instead work on these modules that were assigned for that week during the flex week. It's kind of up to you. Either one of these really ought to work. Again, keeping in mind that everything's available all at once for the unit. The only thing I would caution is that I won't be available as much during this week. This is all the more reason that I also have discussion forums going so that you can also help each other and it won't just be dependent on me. The key thing to keep in mind is that during that 1 week, I will be less available. You can decide to take time off during the July 4th week if you wish, and then keep in mind you'll have a little less support during the following week. So think about that in ahead, plan accordingly. If this doesn't work with your schedule or if you anticipate real big problems with this, contact me sooner rather than later, and we'll figure out a plan to make sure that you've got the support that you need. With all that being said, the last thing that I want to show you today is just sort of an introduction, is the main programming environment that we will be using. And I use programming environment kind of loosely. The program itself is called Atom. It is a modern text editor that is itself hackable, as the people that make Atom like to talk about. Atom is made by the company GitHub. And you probably know github.com. It's a place that you can store code repositories and share with other people. This right here is the Atom text editor. Think of it largely as something similar to Word in terms of just being able to edit files, but it is definitely geared towards programmers. You create a file, you start typing it in a particular language, it will recognize that language, and it will highlight the language to pull out the things that are important. What's really nice about Atom is that it's simple. It really doesn't try and do too much. It falls short of some of the more modern IDEs in terms of how skillfully it can help you write code, but it also gets out of the way. This is really what we want when we're dealing with a web programming environment. Let me get you oriented here. What we're looking at right now is kind of a sophisticated web page. This particular page is just HTML here initially. It is designed for use when you are programming using WebGL. So this particular one is a WebGL page that I use in my graphics class. You'll notice here that when we are writing in HTML, here's a line of HTML that creates a button. It recognizes the HTML tags and the value or key equals value type parameters that are inside the tag, and it highlights them very effectively. It'll also help you whenever you click on a close tag, it shows you which one opens it, so you can keep track of how those line up. The other thing that's really cool here though is that in the middle of HTML, we have CSS. Right here I have a few simple styles that have been defined, and this is a very different language. It recognizes that. It highlights it effectively and gives you just the right information for that language in that one section. Later on, we actually have something that's kind of JavaScript-like. This is in fact GLSL, it's a shader, but it highlights it fairly effectively because it recognizes it's inside a script tag. So ultimately, Atom's really good at pulling out just the language you're working on currently and showing you exactly what you need for it. Let's go take a look real quick at an actual JavaScript file here. Here it's pulling out all kinds of proper information and highlighting it according to that language. It recognizes comments, it recognizes variable declarations and assignments, and it shows them all exactly the way it should. Ultimately, Atom does not aim to be any particular programming environment. It aims to be a very simple tool that you can customize and hack so that it works for the language you are working in. It does this by providing a really simple package system where you can extend it to do more by installing packages. This is what we will be using it for. In our particular purpose, I'll have you install a whole bunch of packages right at the beginning. What I'm trying to get there is that you'll have your environment set up just for the things we need in this class, which will make it really easy to work with. You'll also find it's smaller in size and generally easier to work with than a more robust environment like Eclipse or Visual Studio, where those have gotten to be really complex and complicated things. This is really just a straightforward text editor that is extended only in the ways you want it to be. We'll get into all of that in a lot more detail later. A lot of what you're seeing here is very advanced JavaScript. We won't be going nearly this deep into JavaScript, but ultimately just wanted to give you an idea of what that looks like. For now, head on over to the general info section for the course website, work through all of that material, and unlock Module 1, and go ahead and dive on into the course. And welcome. I hope you have a good summer, and I hope that I don't make it any more difficult than it has to be. Thank you.